Thank you for joining the Purchasing Policy and Procedure training. This training will provide you with an overview on the policy and procedures related to purchasing at LC State. The purchasing policy can be accessed on the policy website. The purchasing procedure manual can be accessed on the purchasing website. The procedure manuals contain more detailed instructions on purchasing for the end user. The purchasing website is also a great resource. There are helpful tips and tricks, procedure walkthrough guides, and additional training material on the website. Contact purchasing at our office number or at our email address with any questions. Purchase orders and the P-card are the two authorized means of purchasing goods and services at LC State. A purchase order is often referred to as a PO, and we refer to our purchasing card as the P-card. These two methods are the only authorized means to acquire goods and services. This provides protection for the college as well as our vendors from individuals claiming to represent LC State who may try to place orders fraudulently. College employees should not place an order or receive goods or services without being able to give the vendor a purchase order number or pay with the P-card first. This procedure gives our suppliers the assurance they have a bona fide order from LC State. No person is authorized to obligate the college without encumbering in advance sufficient funds to meet the purchase obligation. This means that a requisition must be entered in Jagger, routed for approval, and a PO generated prior to placing an order, unless you're purchasing with a P-card. Each department has employees that are authorized to enter requisitions and to approve requisitions and P-card expenses. Generally, the department head is the first approver, and all purchases at or above $2,000 require next level approval. A purchase order is created by entering a requisition into the Jagger e-procurement system to route for approvals. The Jagger system training will provide more detailed information on how to enter requisitions in Jagger. In general, requisitions flow through an approval process of individuals and departments who are responsible for verifying accuracy, completeness, and the availability of budget or funds to support the acquisition. The requester and approvers are responsible for determining and ensuring funds are available and properly budgeted for the acquisition or purchase. When the final approval is made on the requisition, the purchase order will be automatically generated and submitted to the vendor. Please note that a requisition is not fully approved until a purchase order has been generated, and a requisition number should never be given to a vendor, only a purchase order number. The P-card program is designed to establish a more efficient, cost-effective method of purchasing and paying for smaller transactions. All purchases made with the P-card must comply with the P-card policy and P-card procedure manual linked here. Each P-card purchase must have a valid business objective relevant to the college. Contact purchasing to schedule P-card training. Purchasing at LC State is governed by different dollar thresholds. The purchasing requirements by dollar threshold are $100 or less, or $1,999.99 or less. To facilitate efficient purchasing and payment, P-cards are required to be used for all purchases of $100 or less, and they're highly encouraged to be used for all purchases of $1,999.99 or less. The exception being the punch-out vendors listed on our Jagger website. The Jagger punch-out vendors, for example, Amazon, Staples, Office Depot, are the method that should be used for those purchases as opposed to the P-card. Of course, if a vendor will not accept a P-card, a purchase order can be used. Purchases that are under $20,000 are considered under our bid limit, and solicitation is not required. We do encourage departments to obtain quotes and use good judgment when making these purchases. Remember to use the state contracts or Jagger punch-outs when applicable. The next level of purchase is considered the small or informal purchase, and this is $20,000 to $249,999. Purchases in this threshold will require the purchasing department to solicit quotes. For federally funded or grant-funded small purchases, the dollar limit begins at $10,000. The purchasing department will have to solicit quotes for any grant or federally funded purchase of $10,000 to $249,999. The final limit is our large or formal purchases, which are $250,000 or greater. The purchasing department will have to issue a formal request for proposal or invitation to bid for purchases in this threshold. The procurement method determination document is linked here, and this document provides an overview on the different steps that each level of purchase involves and provides an idea on the time frame. Time is one of the most critical components in the purchasing process. The informal purchases may take approximately 2 to 6 weeks, whereas formal purchases can take anywhere from 2 to 5 months or longer, depending on the dollar value and complexity of the solicitation. Involve us early in the planning process to help with timelines, estimated costs, and potential vendors. There are some exemptions to the purchasing process for goods or services that may be unique or don't lend themselves to acquisition by solicitation or the bid process. Contact purchasing to review if the good or service that you need is going to fall into one of these categories. Some examples include purchases from correctional industries, purchases using interagency contracts, and different situational acquisitions such as employee training or the purchase of used goods. Sole source is another exemption process. In most circumstances, LC State will purchase material, equipment, supplies, and service via competitive means. However, we may forego that process and approve a sole source procurement if the end user can adequately demonstrate that only one vendor can provide that good or service. Contact purchasing for more information and see the sole source request form on the purchasing forms page. State contracts are contracts that the Idaho Division of Purchasing has negotiated on behalf of all agencies of Idaho. You always want to check the state contracts and the Jagger punchouts first for purchases that you might need to make. The Jagger punchouts are backed by cooperative contracts or the state contracts. A few examples of the Jagger punchout include Amazon, Grainger, Office Depot, and Staples. A list of the state contracts is available at the link here to the Idaho Division of Purchasing site. However, we encourage everyone to contact purchasing if you have any questions on whether or not what you're looking to purchase might be covered by a state contract. Please feel free to reach out and we'll perform that review with you. A note that the use of statewide contracts for personal use is prohibited. The use of state contracts does have an exemption. For example, if you can find a good or service elsewhere that is equal or less than the state contract price, there's a procedure to document and obtain approval. If the value of that single one-time purchase is less than $20,000, the requester needs to include comparison documentation, quotes, a PDF of the website with the quote of the contract and non-contract price. Ensure the comparison documentation shows all applicable amounts. For P-card purchases, that documentation should be retained with the P-card transaction, and for PO purchases, the documentation needs to be attached to the internal attachments on the requisition in Jagger. If the value of that purchase is going to be $20,000 or greater, there's an exemption form on the purchasing site linked here. Please note this doesn't exclude information technology and office furniture purchases. For more information, contact purchasing with any questions. LC State is exempt from sales tax. Purchases of goods for official college business that are physically received in the state of Idaho are exempt from Idaho sales and use tax. A copy of the ST 101 tax exemption form and the ST 104 lodging exemption form are posted on the purchasing website. These forms can be taken or sent to the vendor. One note that goods that are picked up in a state other than Idaho, for example, a purchase of goods that are picked up in Washington, would not be exempt from the Idaho sales and use tax. Invoices. When you purchase with a PO, the vendors are required to submit their invoices to our controller's office at the email address noted here. In the event that a vendor sends you an invoice, you're required to submit the invoice to the controller's office immediately for processing. You can submit that invoice by uploading it to Jagger or by emailing it to accounts payable at the email address here. You can contact accounts payable and view their website at the link and contact information listed. Certain purchases have special purchasing procedures. Information technology purchasing. IT purchases include, but aren't limited to, all present and future forms of desktop and mobile computing devices, software and applications, and third-party services related to automation and telecommunications. These types of IT or computer-related purchases require the Information Technology Director's approval. Some examples of computer-related purchases are computer equipment, multimedia hardware, communications-related equipment, peripherals that are over $100, so keyboards, mice, screen protectors, and any online services. The Jagger system will automatically route a requisition for IT-related purchases for this approval. Any requests for alteration or renovations of facilities should be directed to the physical plant director, and the acquisition of any goods or services will be coordinated with purchasing. Sponsored or grant-funded purchases have requirements that may be more restrictive than the state of Idaho or LC state requirements. Please review the Code of Federal Regulations listed here and consult with the Office of Grants and Contracts. The Office of Grants and Contracts policy is listed here on the policy site. Any requisitions funded by a grant cost center will automatically route for approval in Jagger for a grant approval. A note that any assets that are purchased with sponsored funds will be managed in accordance with the applicable institution, state, and federal policies. Leases. The purchasing department can assist you with a lease for goods. This is generally equipment or vehicles. Reach out to purchasing for more information. However, any requests for leases related to office space, storage, or residences should be directed to the Administrative Services Office at their email address listed here. Any trade-in of existing equipment requires authorization from the purchasing director. Please consult with purchasing if you have any equipment that you're looking to trade in. We generally will do a solicitation or an exemption for a trade-in. Disposal of surplus property. No state property shall be disposed of without prior approval of the Vice President for Finance and Administration and the college purchasing director. The surplus property instructions and the online surplus property form are located on the surplus property disposal page. The state surplus property policy and procedures are located at the state controller's site. If you have any property that you're looking to dispose of, access the surplus property disposal page for instructions and the form, and reach out to purchasing with any questions. A note that all employees of the college are prohibited from participating in the acquisition of the college's surplus property. This means that individuals cannot buy surplus property from the college if it's put out for public sale. The purchasing department is responsible for vendor management and determining if a vendor is suspended, debarred, or otherwise excluded from participating in purchases with LC State. PaymentWorks is the platform that we use to onboard, verify, and validate the vendors. All vendors have to be registered with PaymentWorks in order for us to issue them a PO. How does this impact you as an end user? If a vendor isn't available in Jagger to enter a requisition for, this means they have not yet registered with PaymentWorks. You'll need to submit a simple request form in Jagger, a supplier request, where you provide the vendor's name and contact email. Purchasing will then invite them to PaymentWorks, and once the vendor has registered with PaymentWorks, you'll receive an email notification. A link's included here for a how-to guide on entering a PaymentWorks registration invite. It's also helpful to check in Jagger for any vendors that you might do business with in the coming months. If they're not available to use in Jagger, submit a supplier request in advance so they're ready when you need to enter the requisition. We have a PaymentWorks site on the purchasing website, providing information to our vendors and to our internal users on PaymentWorks. PaymentWorks is a digital vendor management and payment security platform, which both streamlines vendor onboarding and helps facilitate electronic payments. PaymentWorks also provides for the collection and update of vendor information. This means vendors can automatically update their information on the PaymentWorks site, including submitting W-9s and other banking information for electronic payments. PaymentWorks also validates and verifies the vendor information such as banking info, addresses, and tax identification numbers. Most importantly, PaymentWorks provides vendor verification checks to ensure compliance with federal, grant, and Idaho statutes. To access the site, see the link here. We'll now provide a brief overview on the Jagger system. Keep in mind that specific detailed Jagger training is available. Please reach out to purchasing to schedule that system training. Jagger is our e-procurement system, which is used for the full procure-to-pay cycle. The procure-to-pay cycle starts with the ordering, the generation of the purchase order, the receipt of goods, and then with accounts payable paying the invoice. Jagger provides workflow, automation, reporting, and process efficiency. You can shop directly with the punch-out catalogs, and approvers can approve via email and assign a substitute if they're out of the office. Jagger supports 3 different roles: a shopper, a requester, and an approver. Faculty and staff can be assigned the shopper role to build a cart and assign it to a requester. A requester is an individual that has access to their department or division cost centers and can place orders into the approval workflow. If you need to request access to your department or division cost centers, please route that to the application specialist in the controller's office. In general, all non-P-card purchases must be entered as a requisition in Jagger prior to placing the order or receiving the goods or services. Requisitions are routed through the approval workflow, and POs are generated after the last approval. You'll enter a receipt in Jagger to confirm that you've received goods, that services have been rendered, and that the invoice is okay to pay. Receipts are required on all purchase orders except for check requests, payment requests, and team travel advances. Jagger supports several different types of requests. We use Jagger to enter a request for the purchase of goods or services from a vendor. This includes a punch-out, a non-catalog request, a payment request, and independent contractor payments. Jagger also supports payment to non-vendors, staff, students, and position candidates. These request types are a check request and a team travel advance request. Finally, we use Jagger for a supplier request to request vendors or suppliers to be invited to PaymentWorks. Please refer to the Jagger resource page for procedure walkthroughs and general reminders. The home screen of Jagger is also used to provide reminders and helpful information. Please contact purchasing with any questions or to schedule additional P-card or Jagger training. Thank you.